He took it from the safe, carried it across Stockholm, and standing on the Riksbron bridge, simply tossed it into the icy waters of the Baltic Sea. That, according to the official version, is how the world forever lost one of the most exquisite pearl tiaras in the history of the Swedish monarchy, Princess Christina's tiara. But what if that isn't the whole story? What possessed a young man, a familiar face in royal circles, to commit such a senseless and cruel act? Today, we'll separate fact from fiction and uncover what truly happened on that fateful day, and whether the tiara was actually drowned. To truly grasp the spirit of this magnificent piece, we must journey back to the mid-19th century, to Sweden under the reign of the Bernadotte dynasty. This was a time when the monarchy, still relatively new to the nation, sought to establish its authority and grandeur on the European stage. King Oscar II and his wife, Queen Sophia of Nassau, were the embodiment of this new, enlightened, yet rigorous monarchical style. The court in Stockholm eschewed the ostentatious displays of wealth seen in Paris or Vienna, preferring instead a more restrained, Scandinavian elegance. Queen Sophia was a woman of profound intellect, deep religiosity, and impeccable taste. She had no need for cumbersome jewels to underscore her status. Her power resided in her dignity and sharp mind. It was for such a queen that a special adornment was required, not a declaration of opulence, but a whisper of nobility. The commission for this new tiara was not merely a matter of protocol, but an act of creating a symbol that would reflect its owner's personality and the refined aesthetic of the Swedish court. The choice fell upon court jeweler Ribhagen, whose name was synonymous with quality and refinement throughout Stockholm. He was a master who exquisitely understood the fine line between royal grandeur and aristocratic restraint. His task was to craft a piece that would be both grand for state occasions and light enough not to burden the queen during long official ceremonies. The tiara was intended to be a harmonious complement to the wearer rather than overpowering her. At the heart of the design philosophy lay an idea of natural harmony and pristine elegance. In an era when intricate floral motifs and historical allusions were the height of fashion, Ribhagen proposed a concise, almost architectural design. He deliberately rejected massive stones in favor of an ideal combination of two of the most noble materials, diamonds and sea pearls. This was a bold departure, for pearls, symbols of purity and wisdom, perfectly complemented Queen Sophia's character. Thus, a masterpiece came to life, not driven by the pursuit of carats, but by the quest for perfect form. Each pearl was meticulously hand-selected, each diamond sparkle intended to serve a singular purpose, to emphasize the delicate luminescence of the nacre. This was a tiara designed not to dazzle, but to mesmerize, an elegant adornment for a wise queen, becoming the very epitome of Scandinavian jewelry artistry. Upon first glance at Princess Christina's tiara, it wasn't its grand scale that captivated, but its ethereal lightness. Unlike the weighty imperial diadems crafted to dominate with their sheer presence, this ornament seemed woven from whispers of moonlight and morning dew. It was living proof that true elegance speaks in hushed tones. Were you to hold it in your hands, you would feel its deceptive delicacy, the cool touch of the metal, and the almost weightless mass of its pearls and diamonds. The heart of the composition was a symphony of selected sea pearls. These were not gigantic Baroque specimens, but a dozen perfectly round, flawlessly smooth pearls of medium size. It took the jewelers of the House of Ribhagen months to assemble this harmonious ensemble, ensuring each pearl bead possessed the same warm, inner glow, as if radiating from within. Their soft, milky luster was the primary accent, a symbol of Queen Sophia's purity and aristocratic dignity. This pearl harmony was accented by a constellation of old mine-cut diamonds. These were not modern stones, whose 57 facets are computer-optimized for maximum brilliance. No, these were hand-cut, old mine diamonds. Their facets were slightly asymmetrical, their proportions imperfect, and it was precisely this that imparted a living, warm soul to them. By candlelight, such stones do not flash with a stark, icy brilliance, but play with soft, iridescent glints, creating a shimmering, almost magical halo around the wearer. Structurally, the tiara was an exquisite fringe style, or a comb, where vertical elements alternated in a strict yet graceful rhythm. On a gossamer, almost invisible frame of platinum or silver-plated gold, delicate spires crowned with pearls were mounted, while shorter, pave-set diamond rays sparkled between them. This design created an impression of lightness and upward aspiration, reminiscent either of frozen fountain sprays or the jagged points of an ice crown. The jeweler's mastery was evident in the invisible details. Each pearl was secured so delicately that it seemed to float in mid-air. Every diamond was set into its tiny bezel with incredible precision. This entire openwork pattern was not only beautiful but surprisingly robust, a triumph of jewelry engineering for its era. The tiara's weight was meticulously calculated so that it could be worn for hours without the slightest discomfort. Adorning the head, the tiara was utterly transformed. It didn't oppress, but rather crowned the wearer's image. Its cool frame barely grazed the skin, while the precious elements came alive with the slightest movement. The pearls glowed softly against dark hair, and the diamonds caught every flicker of light from hundreds of candles in the Stockholm Palace ballrooms. It was more than just an ornament. It was an extension of personality, reserved, noble, and full of an inner light. Imagine the royal palace of Stockholm, awash in the glow of 1,000 candles. It's the mid-19th century, a solemn reception honoring the opening of the Riksdag. The air hums with the hushed conversations of aristocracy, the rustle of silk gowns, and the gentle clinking of medals on the uniforms of foreign ambassadors. All eyes are fixed on the grand doors, awaiting the arrival of the royal couple. In such an atmosphere, every piece of jewelry, every detail of the monarch's attire, was scrutinized and became the subject of discussion for weeks to come. And then, the doors swing open. King Oscar II appears, and beside him, Queen Sofia. She wears a severe yet sumptuous gown of dark velvet, accentuating her regal bearing and nobility. But this evening, all eyes are drawn not to her attire, but to her head. Instead of the usual, more substantial jewels, her coiffure is crowned with something new, something never before seen. A light, almost weightless construction of pearls and diamonds that does not impose with its splendor, but seems to float, radiating a soft, otherworldly light. This was its first triumph. Ribhagen's tiara was not a loud declaration of power and wealth. It was a clear, high note in the symphony of courtly luxury. That evening, the ornament ceased to be merely an object. It became the final chord in Queen Sofia's image, the physical embodiment of her essence, wisdom embodied in pearls and royal dignity shimmering in diamonds. She didn't merely wear the tiara, she merged with it, presenting her ideal, complete self to the court. The reaction was instantaneous, though expressed in reserved aristocratic forms. A barely perceptible whisper of admiration rippled through the hall. Ladies, accustomed to more opulent jewels, were struck by the elegance and daring simplicity of the new adornment. Men, especially foreign diplomats, saw in it something more than just a piece of jewelry. They recognized a sartorial manifesto of the new Swedish court, self-assured, possessing impeccable taste, and devoid of any need for ostentatious display. The newspapers the following day would carry glowing descriptions, but the true resonance occurred that very evening in the candlelight and the hushed exchanges of high society. The tiara instantly became a legend. It wasn't just beautiful, it was intelligent, much like its owner. From that moment on, it ceased to be the sole possession of Queen Sofia and began its journey through history, becoming an indispensable part of the Swedish monarchy's treasury. After Queen Sofia's passing, The tiara's story could have followed the official route, passing to a direct heir and taking its place in the main treasury. But fate had a different plan, imbuing the ornament with a warmer, more personal history. It passed not to the reigning branch, but to the Queen's younger son, Prince Oscar, and then to his daughter Elsa. Elsa Bernadotte, who lived an incredible 103 years, became the custodian of this treasure for decades. And it was she, becoming the godmother to her young cousin, Princess Christina, who decided that this tiara was created just for her. The tiara's golden age began in 1964, on Princess Christina's 21st birthday. This gift was more than just a lavish gesture. For the young princess, the fourth daughter in a family where inheritance rules meant she couldn't count on the most famous crown jewels, the tiara from her godmother became a true treasure. This wasn't a state regalia issued for an event. It was her very own personal diadem. This gift symbolized the continuity of generations, the passing of family history from hand to hand, from woman to woman. The tiara instantly became Princess Christina's signature piece. Unlike her older sisters, who owned several diadems, this pearl tiara was Christina's only one. And this exclusivity forged a special, unbreakable bond between them. Every appearance she made in this piece was not routine, but an event. She didn't merely wear the tiara, she continued its story, writing her own chapter into its illustrious history. For nearly half a century, the tiara was the princess's faithful companion at all significant events of the Swedish monarchy. It gleamed in her hair at her sister's weddings, during state visits, and in official portraits. But its most prominent stage was the annual Nobel Prize ceremonies. Amidst the dazzling spotlights of the Stockholm Concert Hall and the grandeur of the City Hall's Blue Hall, surrounded by Europe's most brilliant jewels, Christina's modest and elegant tiara never faded into the background. It was the epitome of Scandinavian style, elegant, restrained, and full of dignity. Princess Christina wore it with a particular artistry. Understanding that pearls require harmonious surroundings, she often complemented the tiara with pearl necklaces, earrings, and bracelets, creating complete and impeccable ensembles. The piece never looked like a museum exhibit on her. It lived, it breathed, it became an integral part of her own style, her royal identity. For many Swedes, the image of Princess Christina was inconceivable without that tender pearl luminescence. It was more than just a precious jewel. It was a talisman, connecting her to her beloved godmother and her great-grandmother, Queen Sophia. Each time she put it on, the princess seemed to touch her family's history. This tiara had witnessed the changing of eras, the birth and passing of generations. It was a silent witness to the triumphs and personal dramas of the House of Bernadotte. The world last saw this masterpiece in December of 2011 at another Nobel banquet. Princess Christina, elegant as ever, greeted guests, her beloved tiara softly glimmering in the camera lights. No one that evening could have suspected it was a farewell. That just a few months later, the golden age of this adornment would end in the most absurd and tragic way, transforming it from a family heirloom into a phantom, a legend of lost beauty. Behind the sparkle of diamonds and the purity of pearls always lie human passions, and the story of this tiara is no exception. Its shadow, its dark side, was not an ancient conspiracy or a court intrigue, but a banal, yet no less destructive, betrayal. The name of this shadow was a 19-year-old young man whom Princess Christina and her husband, Tord Magnusson, considered a family friend. He entered their home not as a thief, but as a guest, gradually earning their trust to such an extent that he was left alone in their apartment across from the Stockholm Palace. This naive trust, however, proved to be her undoing. One day, while alone in the apartment, the young man stumbled upon something he should never have found: the key to the princess's private safe. His first move was cautious. He opened the safe and took several valuable, though not the most iconic, items. An aquamarine ring that had belonged to Christina's great-grandmother, a diamond ring, antique gold cufflinks, and a bracelet gifted by the king of Ethiopia. He sold these items for a pittance, and tragically, the princess and her husband never even noticed their absence. Impunity, it seems, only emboldens the audacious. Convinced his crime had gone undetected, the thief decided to go for the ultimate prize. He waited for the opportune moment when Princess Christina and Tord Magnusson would be away at the palace leading a tour. What a bitter irony. And once again opened the safe. This time, his target was unmistakable. The pearl tiara. The crowning jewel, the very heart of the princess's collection and her personal history. He took it and vanished, leaving behind an emptiness that could never truly be filled. Naturally, the disappearance of such an iconic piece was noticed almost immediately. The police acted with surprising swiftness, and the culprit was apprehended. At the station, he confessed everything. He recounted how he had sold the initial jewels, how he had returned for the tiara. But when investigators posed the crucial question, where was it now? His answer sent shockwaves through everyone present. The young man claimed that on his way to a party, as he crossed the Riksbron Bridge behind the Parliament building, he simply tossed the tiara into the sea. And this is where the documented facts end, and the whispers of rumor and doubt begin. Why? Why sell off less valuable items only to destroy the most precious in such a senseless manner? The culprit offered no coherent explanation for his actions, fueling a multitude of theories. Was it an act of panic, born from the fear of being caught with such a recognizable item? Or did he lie to conceal the true buyer, someone who had paid him a king's ransom and demanded silence? Or perhaps, beneath it all, lurked some personal, twisted vendetta? The official version, based solely on the thief's testimony, posits that the tiara rests at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. But these are merely the words of a criminal, a compelling yet unsubstantiated myth. Many experts and connoisseurs of jewelry art refuse to believe this, convinced that the masterpiece was secretly sold, its stones disassembled, and its historical form forever lost. The truth thus remained untold, buried beneath a veil of secrecy and the lies of one man who betrayed trust and obliterated a legend. The news of the thief's confession brought no solace, only deepening the pervasive shock. From that moment on, the tiara ceased to be merely a stolen item that could be found and returned. It transformed into a ghost, an object of desperate searches where the odds of success dwindled with every passing hour. The end of this jewel's era arrived not in the quiet solemnity of an auction house, nor through the dignified passage of inheritance. It occurred under the cold Stockholm sky, on a bridge, in a single, senseless and cruel gesture. The atmosphere in those days was thick with a blend of outrage and a faint, flickering hope. All of Sweden, glued to the news, simply could not fathom such an act of vandalism. How could a piece of national history be so utterly destroyed? Divers were immediately dispatched to the location specified by the criminal. Footage of their work flooded every news channel. The dark, frigid waters of the Baltic, rescue service boats, and the tense anticipation on the shore. Each time a diver surfaced, held breaths filled the air, and each time their negative gesture landed another crushing blow. This was not merely a police operation, it was an act of profound farewell. With each fruitless hour of searching, it became starkly clear, no miracle would occur. The tiara, having survived 2 world wars, shifts in monarchies, and an entire procession of eras, met its demise in the murky waters of a Stockholm canal. The sorrow of its loss was universal. It was a loss not just for Princess Christina and the royal family, but for the entirety of Swedish culture. The era in which this jewel could be admired, photographed, and its history studied had come to an abrupt and heartbreaking end. And so, the tiara entered its life in the shadows. It transcended into the category of legendary, lost treasures, much like the Amber Room. Its existence now split into two agonizing versions. The first, official and romanticized, held that it rested on the seabed, awaiting a serendipitous treasure hunter centuries from now. The second, more pragmatic and brutal, suggested the thief had lied, and the tiara had been secretly sold on the black market, where an awful fate inevitably awaited it, to be broken down for its stones and metal, its famous origins meticulously erased. In either scenario, a cohesive work of art, preserving generations of memory, had ceased to exist. When the divers surfaced from the cold waters for the last time and the police closed the search case, it might have seemed that the tiara's story was concluded. But it was precisely at this moment of complete and definitive disappearance that its paradoxical second birth began. It did not return on a velvet cushion in an auction house or within a museum display. Its re-entry onto the global stage was far more potent and ubiquitous. It returned as a legend, an unhealed wound in the history of jewelry art. The very event that brought it back into the spotlight was its loss itself. Photographs of the tiara, previously known only to a narrow circle of connoisseurs, spread across the globe. Every image of Princess Christina wearing her favorite jewel was now scrutinized, evoking not only admiration, but also a sharp pang of loss. The tiara became the protagonist of dozens of articles, documentaries, and podcasts about lost treasures. Its phantom now perpetually appears on the pages of glossy magazines and in online forum discussions, where enthusiasts still concoct theories about its fate. This new reading of the tiara differed radically from its historical one. While it once symbolized understated elegance, family continuity, and Scandinavian dignity, it now became an emblem of fragility, betrayal, and irreplaceable cultural loss. Its story transformed from a society chronicle into a crime drama tinged with tragedy. It ceased to be merely a beautiful object and became a powerful narrative, compelling us to ponder trust, value, and eternity. It was this tragic fame that elevated its value to unprecedented heights. While the tiara resided in the princess's safe, its worth was known only to appraisers. Now, its hypothetical price became the subject of speculation among the world's largest auction houses. Experts agree that if this jewel, with its incredible history, from Queen Sophia to its dramatic disappearance, were to suddenly appear at a Christie's or Sotheby's sale, it would ignite a bidding war and fetch an astronomical sum. Provenance steeped in mystery and crime proved to be the most precious of all. Thus, its second birth took place. It returned to the stage not as a physical object, but as an idea, an eternal question without an answer. It achieved immortality not in the glare of spotlights, but in the darkness of the ocean depths or in the secret cache of a private collector. And this return, strangely enough, made it even more famous and coveted than it had been during its lifetime. Where is the tiara now? The answer to this question is simultaneously simple and agonizing: nowhere and everywhere. Physically, it does not exist in the public sphere. Its custodian is not a state museum, nor a private collector with a velvet display case. Its new and final guardian is eternity itself, woven from old photographs, police reports, documentaries, and our shared memory. It definitively departed the world of living accessories and ascended to the major league, the league of legendary historical artifacts. Now, it is not a piece of jewelry that can be worn to a banquet. It is a spectre, an object of study for historians, jewelers, and criminologists. Its current status is that of a symbol, materialized in thousands of images and endless debates about its destiny. It no longer belongs to the Swedish crown. It belongs to global culture as a bitter and cautionary tale of beauty and betrayal. If one were to attempt to assess its hypothetical value today, one would have to begin with its material foundation. Flawless mid-19th century natural pearls are, in themselves, an immense rarity. Antique cut diamonds, prized by collectors for their history and soft, living play of light, add significant weight. The craftsmanship of court jeweler Ribhagen is a mark of quality and historical authenticity. But all of this is merely the foundation of its value. The true value, however, derives from the intangible. Its impeccable provenance, a direct, documented line from Queen Sofia to Princess Christina, is what the world's premier museums and collectors relentlessly pursue. But even that pales in comparison to the last, most dramatic and most costly chapter of its story. The scandal, the mystery of its disappearance, the sheer drama of its loss. These are the elements that transform it from a very expensive tiara into a priceless artifact. Its price today would be measured not in carats, but in newspaper headlines, in hours of diverse labor, and in the bitter sting of betrayed trust. So, was Princess Christina's tiara truly thrown into the sea? Or was it secretly sold and ruthlessly disassembled? Ultimately, the answer to that question no longer matters. Because in both scenarios, the outcome is the same. A masterpiece created as a unified whole, a harmony of pearls and diamonds, an embodiment of Queen Sophia's exquisite taste, was destroyed. The world was forever deprived of this specific work of art in its pristine form. And herein lies the main conclusion of this entire narrative. A magnificent piece of jewelry is never simply the sum of its carats and the cost of its metal. It is a silent chronicler. Princess Christina's tiara bore witness to 100 years of Swedish history. It absorbed the candlelight at Nobel banquets, reflected the flash of cameras at royal weddings, felt the warmth of its noble wearer's skin, and ultimately, the cold grip of a betrayer. It is the physical embodiment of human passions across their entire spectrum, from royal dignity and familial love to base greed and senseless vandalism. Its story is not about pearls. It is a story about a wise queen, a loving godmother, an elegant princess, and a young man who, in pursuit of quick money, destroyed something crafted for eternity. Paradoxically, the person who attempted to erase it from history forever etched its name into the annals. By his actions, he transformed a beautiful tiara, though primarily known to specialists, into a global legend. He took it from Princess Christina, but he gifted it to the entire world as an eternal reminder of how fragile beauty is and how easily something created with love and craftsmanship can be shattered. Perhaps we will never again witness its physical brilliance under the spotlights. But its story, stripped of all material trappings, freed from the necessity of being guarded in a safe, now shines brighter than any diamond. Because true masterpieces in the end live not in treasuries, but in the legends we tell about them. And that is a radiance that cannot be stolen, nor can it be drowned.